I still remember that morning like it was yesterday. The kind of morning where the air smells like rain and old memories. The kind that cling to you even when you wish they wouldn't. The sun was trying its best to peek through the gray clouds, but the light just couldn't make up its mind. I was standing by the kitchen window, staring out at the maple tree in my yard, the one I'd planted when my daughter Emily was born, 45 years ago. That tree was taller than the house now, strong, stubborn, and still standing, just like I used to be. I had spent the last few weeks planning my 70th birthday. Not anything fancy. Lord knows I've never been the fancy type. Just a backyard barbecue, a few friends, Helen's famous potato salad, some old country tunes on the radio. I wanted laughter in the air, not the sound of pity or obligation, just family. But when my phone rang that morning, something inside me already knew it wasn't going to be good news. You ever get that feeling? That little twist in your gut before your heart catches up? Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Emily's name flashed across my phone screen. I smiled, thinking she was finally calling to ask if she could bring the grandkids, Girly, to help me set up the decorations. But her voice, when I answered, didn't carry any warmth. "Mom," she said flatly, "I've been thinking, maybe we should skip your party this year." I blinked, sure I'd heard her wrong. "Skip it? What do you mean, skip it?" Jake, her husband, chimed in from the background, his voice smug, careless, like he was talking about throwing out old trash. "We're not wasting money on that circus again," he said. "You're too old for parties, Margaret." And just like that, the air left the room. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My mouth went dry, my heart thudding slow and heavy, like it was trying to understand what just happened. My Emily, my baby girl, the same one I'd stayed up all night for when she had fevers, the one I'd fed with pennies when times were hard. She was canceling my birthday? I forced a small laugh, trying to ease the tension. "Sweetheart, it's not about money. I just wanted to have everyone together. You know, a little family." "Mom," Emily cut me off, her tone sharper this time. "You don't understand. We've got bills, the kids' school stuff, and Jake's car loan. We can't afford to waste cash on something like this. Something like this. Like my 70th birthday, my life was something like this." I could hear Jake snicker behind her. "You'll be fine, Margaret. You can celebrate with your old lady friends. Maybe have tea or something." And that's when I felt something shift inside me. A part of me that had always made excuses for her, for them, suddenly went still. I took a deep breath and said quietly, "All right then, no problem." I don't think she expected that. She was waiting for me to argue, to plead, to make her feel guilty. But I didn't give her the satisfaction. I just ended the call, set my phone down, and stared at my reflection in the window. The woman staring back looked tired, not old, just used up. Worn down by years of giving too much and asking for too little. I remember whispering to myself, "No problem, huh?" and laughing bitterly. But as the day went on, that no problem started to turn into something else, into resolve. I poured myself a cup of coffee, the way I always do when I need to think. Helen stopped by later that evening, holding a plate of lemon pie. She could tell something was off the moment she saw my face. "What happened, Maggie?" she asked, setting the pie down and grabbing my hands. "Oh, you know," I said, forcing a smile. "My daughter decided she's too busy, or maybe I'm too old, for birthdays now." Helen's eyes widened. "You're kidding me. Emily canceled your 70th? "Yep." I sipped my coffee, pretending it didn't sting. Apparently, I'm a circus they can't afford. Helen's mouth tightened. That ungrateful little... She stopped herself, took a breath. You don't deserve that, honey. I shrugged, but the truth was, her words cracked. I knew that the girl I raised, the one who used to braid my hair and make cards for me every Mother's Day, had turned into someone else entirely. That night, after Helen left, I sat alone in my kitchen. The clock ticked softly, the kind of quiet that makes every second louder. I stared at the old photo on the fridge. Me, Emily, and my late husband Tom, smiling under the summer sun. We looked so happy. Tom used to say, "Family ain't just blood, Maggie. It's who shows up for you when it counts." I guess I finally understood what he meant, because when I turned 70, my daughter didn't show up. But something else did, a kind of clarity I hadn't felt in years. That night, I decided something simple. If my family didn't see my worth, I'd stop begging them to. And if they thought they could erase me from their lives so easily, well, they were about to find out just how wrong they were. I smiled to myself, that bitter, quiet smile only old women make when they've seen too damn much. And under my breath, I whispered, "All right, Emily, you canceled my party. But sweetheart, you just started a different kind of show." That night, after Emily's call, I didn't sleep, not a wink. The rain had started around midnight, soft at first, like a whisper against the roof. But then it turned angry, just like the storm that was brewing inside me. I sat by the living room window with a blanket over my knees, my cat Daisy curled up beside me, the house wrapped in that deep, lonely quiet that only comes when you realize your world's gotten smaller. I wasn't mad. At least that's what I told myself. But deep down, I was. Mad at Jake for talking to me like I was some old burden. Mad at Emily for letting him. Mad at myself for raising a daughter who thought love could be canceled over a few dollars. The clock on the wall, the slick smile, the too firm handshake, the way his eyes never stayed still, always darting around, like a man who's used to lying and hoping no one catches him. But Emily was smitten. "Oh, Mom, he's just nervous," she'd said the first time I met him. He's been through a lot. And maybe he had. But I'd been through a lot too. And I could smell trouble a mile away. I remember that night years ago, when he'd come over for dinner. He'd laughed too loud at his own jokes, drank too much of my wine, and told stories about how hard it was growing up without anyone believing in him. Then he'd looked right at me and said, "But you're different, Mrs. Turner. You look like the kind of woman who knows loyalty when she sees it." I'd smiled politely, but my stomach turned. He was charming, too charming, and men like that, I'd learned, were usually hiding something ugly under all that charm. Fast forward to now. And that same man was calling me too old for parties. Something about that didn't sit right. It wasn't just rude, it felt planned. So the next morning, I grabbed my old notebook, the one with Tom's initials still carved on the cover, and I started writing things down. Dates, conversations, odd moments that suddenly didn't seem so harmless anymore. Like the time Emily asked me to sign some paperwork for her new insurance policy. Said it was just to update family records. I'd trusted her, of course, but she'd been so eager, and Jake had been there too, hovering, making sure I didn't read too carefully. Or the time they'd insisted on taking my car to get it serviced, and it came back smelling like gasoline and with a brand new set of tires I never asked for. Back then, I brushed it off. But now it felt like puzzle pieces that finally started to fit. Around noon, Helen came by again, holding a grocery bag full of fresh bread and soup. She took one look at me and said, "You didn't sleep, did you?" I shook my head. No point, my brain's been working overtime. She poured the soup into a pot and sat across from me. "You thinking about Emily?" "I'm thinking about Jake," I said quietly, "and how he always seems one step ahead of everyone." Helen frowned. "You think he's up to something?" "I don't think, Helen. I know." She leaned back, sighing. "You always had good instincts, Maggie. What's your gut telling you?" "That maybe this birthday thing isn't just about money." Helen raised an eyebrow. "Then what?" I hesitated. "I think they're after something bigger. My house, my accounts, everything Tom left behind." For a long minute, neither of us spoke. The rain outside had stopped, but the air felt heavy, like the sky itself was holding its breath. Helen finally said, "You really think your own daughter would—" "I don't want to think that," I interrupted, my voice trembling. "But Helen, look around. Who else would know where all the paperwork is? Who else has the spare keys? And that was all the push I needed. That evening, when I was cleaning up the kitchen, I found a folded piece of paper under a stack of old mail on the counter. It was from the bank, Emily's handwriting on the envelope. I opened it slowly, my hands trembling just enough to make me spill a bit of my coffee. It was a form, a transfer authorization, for one of my accounts. The name Margaret Turner was printed on top. My name, but the signature line had already been filled out, with handwriting that looked almost like mine. Almost. The room went cold. My chest tightened. "Oh, honey," I whispered to myself, "what have you done?" Just then my phone buzzed. Emily. "Hey, Mom," she said cheerfully. "Just checking in. You okay?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Just fine, sweetheart. How's Jake?" "He's busy. He's been helping me sort out some finances." "I see," I said. "That's real kind of him." "Yeah," she replied, distracted. "Anyway, listen, if you get any calls from the bank, just ignore them, okay? They've been mixed up with the paperwork." I closed my eyes. There it was. The lie. Smooth and practiced. "Sure thing, honey," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. "I'll ignore him." When I hung up, I felt something in me snap. Not in anger, but in resolve. If they thought I was just some naive old lady, they were about to find out just how wrong they were. I reached for Tom's old toolbox from the closet. Inside it wasn't just wrenches and screws. There was his old tape recorder, the one he used back when he did interviews for the local paper. I hadn't touched it in years, but it still worked like a charm. That night, I started recording. Every phone call, every visit, every little thing that didn't sit right. Because if Jake and Emily were plotting something, I'd be ready, and I'd have proof. I wasn't sure where it would lead yet, but I knew this. They'd canceled my birthday, but they'd just given me a whole new purpose. 2 days later, I was out on my porch, sipping my morning coffee, when I caught that smell again. Gasoline. Sharp, heavy, like the scent that clung to my car the last time Jake had taken it for servicing. It hit me so strong my stomach twisted. Something about that smell always made me uneasy. Maybe because it reminded me of my late husband Tom and all the late nights he'd spent fixing engines in the barn. I looked out at the quiet little street I'd lived on for 40 years. The maple trees were shedding leaves across the cracked sidewalk. Kids were biking past on their way to school, and Mrs. Geller was out front with her old mutt, waving at me with her free hand and a cigarette in the other. Everything looked so peaceful, but I'd learned peace in a small town is like fog. Looks thick until you walk into it, and then you realize there's nothing holding it up. I set down my mug and grabbed my keys. If something was off, I was done waiting for proof to come to me. I'd find it myself. The car sat in the driveway, clean on the outside, but still smelling like a gas station inside. I slid into the seat, started the engine, and decided to drive straight to Marty's garage. Marty been Tom's friend for decades, the kind of man who could fix a carburetor with one hand and see through a lie with the other. He looked up from under a hood when I pulled in. "Well, I'll be damned," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "If it isn't Miss Maggie Turner. You haven't been down here in years." "Just Maggie these days, Marty," I said, trying to smile. "Can you take a look at something for me? I think Jake might have done something weird with my car." He frowned, motioning me closer. "Jake? That your son-in-law? The one with the shiny shoes and no real job?" "Yeah, that's him," I muttered. He chuckled. "What'd he do this time?" "Not sure yet, but humor me. Check everything." He nodded and got to work, popping the hood, humming under his breath. I waited near the office, pretending to scroll my phone, while my heart thudded in my chest. 10 minutes later, he came back holding a small piece of tubing in his hand. "You see this?" he said. I nodded. "What is it?" "Fuel line, but it's been cut and taped back sloppy. Like someone wanted it to leak just enough to cause trouble. Not enough to get noticed right away." My throat went dry. "You mean, like sabotage?" He gave me a hard look. "Yeah, Maggie, exactly like that." The words hung in the air between us. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears. "Could it have been an accident?" I whispered. He shook his head. "Not unless accidents come with fingerprints." He showed me the edge where the tape was torn. Grease mixed with something that looked like lotion. Expensive lotion. The kind Jake always bragged about buying for Emily. I steadied myself on the car door. "Marty, can you fix it?" "Sure can. But I'd keep this quiet if I were you. Whoever did this might not want you driving far." I nodded, swallowing hard. "Thank you." When I got home, the air in the house felt heavier somehow. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the recorder I'd hidden behind the coffee maker. Every time Emily called now, I let it run. Every visit, every offhand comment, it all went on tape. That afternoon, Emily showed up unannounced, smiling like nothing was wrong. "Hey, Mom. Thought I'd drop by and check on you." "Sure you did," I said, with a half smile. "Come in, sweetheart. Coffee?" She nodded, setting her purse down, that same tan leather purse she'd had forever. As I poured her a cup, she wandered around the kitchen, talking fast. "You know, Jake's been thinking maybe you should move in with us," she said casually. "It'd be easier for everyone." "Oh?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "Why's that?" "Well, you're alone out here, Mom. And that big house, it's too much. You could sell it. Put the money somewhere safe. Jake even talked to someone at the bank who could help." I froze, spoon halfway to the sugar jar. "That's thoughtful," I said slowly. "Didn't realize Jake handled bank stuff now." She laughed awkwardly. "Oh, he's just helping me manage things better. He's good with numbers." I wanted to laugh too, but not for the same reason. Jake couldn't balance a checkbook if his life depended on it. "Emily," I said softly, setting her cup down. "Remember when you were little and you wanted a puppy so bad? And I told you that sometimes people only offer you what they want to take from you later?" She frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, honey," I said, smiling again. "Just memories." She stayed another half hour, chatting about nonsense, the weather, the neighbors, some sale at Target. But her eyes kept drifting toward the shelf, where Tom's old lockbox used to sit. I'd moved it days ago. When she finally left, I walked to the door and locked it behind her. Then I went straight to my bedroom closet, reached behind the coats, and pulled out the new safe I bought last week. Inside were my account documents, the house deed, and the original will Tom and I had signed years ago. The one leaving everything to me and then to Emily, only if she stayed honest and married in good faith. I sat there on the floor, staring at that paper, my hands trembling. Tom had always known I'd need it one day. Maybe he saw something in Jake I hadn't back then. As the sun went down, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Emily. It was Marty. "Maggie, you might want to sit down for this," he said. I ran that car part number. Guess who ordered the replacement online 2 weeks ago? I felt the room spin. Who? Jake Williams. Shipped to your address. Guess he didn't expect me to look. My stomach dropped. "Marty," I whispered, "don't tell anyone about this yet, please." He hesitated. "You sure? You need to tell somebody." "I will," I said firmly. "Just not yet." I hung up and stared out the window at the dark street, the reflection of my face faint in the glass. Somewhere in town, Jake was probably smiling that same smug smile, thinking he'd fooled me. But I wasn't the same woman he used to charm over Sunday dinners. I'd been quiet too long, let too much slide. That was about to change. I reached for the recorder again, hit play, and listened to Emily's voice from earlier. Light, sweet, full of practiced innocence. Then Jake's voice came through faintly in the background, saying, "Did she mention the account?" I froze. My hands went cold. No, this wasn't just about the house anymore. This was about everything I owned. And maybe even my life. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The house was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator hum. That kind of quiet makes you think. And thinking can be dangerous when you've got too many old ghosts rattling around in your head. I made my coffee black, the way Tom used to drink it, and stood by the window again. My maple tree was shedding the last of its leaves, bare branches reaching toward the sky like hands begging for mercy. Funny how nature mirrors your soul sometimes. I decided right then that I'd stop waiting for Emily or Jake to make the next move. They wanted me to play the fool, the sweet, harmless old lady who didn't notice a damn thing. Well, fine. I could play that role better than anyone. So when Emily called later that day, I turned on the sugar. "Hi, sweetheart. I was just thinking about you." "You're probably right, honey. Maybe it's time I let go of this old place. Too many stairs for these old knees." Her voice brightened instantly. "Exactly! Jake could help you with the paperwork. He knows a realtor." "Of course he does," I said under my breath, smiling. She didn't catch it. We talked another 15 minutes. I agreed to have them over for dinner on Saturday to talk things through. I even offered to make Jake's favorite, pot roast. If you're gonna bait a trap, might as well use good meat. When I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the empty chair across from me. I could almost see Tom there, arms crossed, smirking the way he did when I got one of my wild ideas. "Don't look at me like that," I muttered to his ghost. "You'd do the same thing." The clock ticked on. I wrote a note to myself. "Hide recorder near the living room lamp." Then another. "Transfer savings to new account under maiden name." By the time Saturday came, everything was ready. The house smelled like rosemary and garlic. The table was set. The recorder was hidden. My nerves were steel. They showed up around 6. Emily looked nervous. Jake looked smug. He walked in like he owned the place, his cologne hitting the air before he even spoke. "Smells great, Ma," he said, flashing that fake grin. "Hope you made dessert, too." "Oh, you know me," I said, smiling. "Can't let anyone leave hungry." We sat, ate, talked. I laughed at his stupid jokes. Nodded at Emily's fake sympathy. Emily smiled nervously. "It's just so you can relax, Mom. You won't have to worry anymore. I set my fork down and smiled sweetly. Oh, honey, that sounds wonderful. But you know what make me feel really safe? They both leaned in. What? Jake asked. If we did it at the bank, with my lawyer there. The way his smile froze for half a second. Oh, it was beautiful. He covered it fast, but I sighed. Sure, he said. Yeah, whatever makes you comfortable. I nodded. Good. Saturday then. My lawyer, Mr. Benson, will be there. You remember him, right? Jake's eyes flickered. Can't say I do. Well, I said, my tone sharp enough to cut the air. He remembers you. He went pale. Emily looked between us, confused. Mom, what's going on? Oh, nothing, I said, sipping my tea. Just business. You two should probably head out. It's getting late. They left soon after, whispering on their way to the car. As soon as the door shut, I grabbed the recorder and replayed the conversation. Crystal clear. Every word. And then, at the very end, when they thought I couldn't hear through the window, Jake's voice drifted back in. She's catching on, Em. If that old bat talks to a lawyer, we're screwed. Emily's reply was barely audible, but it chilled me to my bones. Then we'll just have to make sure she doesn't. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in my chair, staring at the shadows crawling across the ceiling, thinking about the daughter I raised and the stranger she'd become. Something deep inside me hardened that night. I wasn't just fighting for my money anymore. I was fighting for my life. That night, sleep didn't just avoid me, it mocked me. I sat by the window again, the streetlight pouring that orange glow across my living room. I could hear a dog barking somewhere down Maple Street, and every sound made my skin twitch. Make sure she doesn't, Emily had said. Make sure she doesn't what? Talk? Breathe? I wasn't going to wait to find out. Next morning, I called an old friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in nearly 20 years. Hey, Benny, I said when he picked up. Maggie? Well, I'll be damned. I thought you'd fallen off the face of the earth. Not yet, I said, but some folks might be planning to help me along. Benny used to be a detective. Retired now, but sharp as a tack. He'd been Ton's fishing buddy once. The kind of guy who still carried that old-school cop edge. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting. No gasps, no pity, just that low grunt every few minutes. When I finished, he said, You think your daughter's in on it? I hesitated. I know she is. There was a long silence. Then, all right, here's what you're gonna do. Don't confront 'em. Don't show you're scared. You let 'em dig their own grave. I'll help you build the walls. He showed up that afternoon in his old Ford, wearing a flannel jacket and chewing on a toothpick. Still like black coffee? He asked. I smiled faintly. Some things don't change. He walked around my house like he was back on the force, checking windows, doors, even under the porch. You got cameras? He asked. One out front, one in the hallway. He grunted. Not enough. We'll install 2 more. And a voice recorder in the dining room. That's when I knew I wasn't crazy. This was real. I wasn't just some paranoid old woman with too much time to think. By evening, Benny had set up everything. He left me with strict instructions. Act normal. Let 'em think they're winning. And when they show their hand, we'll be ready. And boy, did they show it fast. 3 days later, Emily came over, all smiles, holding a grocery bag. Thought I'd make you lunch, Mom, she chirped. My instinct screamed, but I smiled anyway. Oh, sweetheart, that's so thoughtful. She made sandwiches, while I watched her hands shake just slightly. I noticed the tiniest powder residue on the counter when she thought I wasn't looking. A pale blue dust near my glass. I kept my cool. I talked about flowers, church gossip, and the weather. I even took a fake sip from the glass and smiled. perfect lemonade, I said, licking my lips. Her eyes flickered. Glad you like it. When she went to the bathroom, I swapped my glass with the empty one on the sink and poured the lemonade down the drain. When she left, I called Benny. She tried it, I whispered. She really tried it. He was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Keep that glass. Don't wash it. I'll send someone to pick it up." And that's when my blood ran cold. Because as I was talking, I heard a faint click from the other phone line. Someone had been listening. "Benny," I hissed, "I think they're tapping my phone." He didn't even sound surprised. "Then it's worse than I thought. We move faster. I'll come tonight." That night, thunder rolled across the town. The storm hit like the world was trying to wash itself clean. Benny came over soaked, carrying a duffel bag full of wires and one small black camera. "Time to end this," he said. We set up the final piece in my dining room, right behind the cabinet where Emily liked to sit. Then we practiced how it would go. "When they show up with papers or poison, whatever it is," Benny said, "you play along. Keep 'em talking. Every word, every threat, we'll have it on tape." Saturday came again, the so-called house sale meeting. They showed up exactly at 6:30, same as before. Emily wore a soft blue dress. Jake had his briefcase. "Mama," she said sweetly, "we just need you to sign a few things. Then it's all done. You can finally rest." Rest. That word again. I took the papers, pretending to read. "This says temporary guardianship. What's that about?" Jake laughed nervously. "Just legal language, for the sale." "Uh-huh," I said. "Then why does it say I'm medically unfit to manage my finances?" Emily froze. Jake tried to grab the paper, but I slapped my hand on it. "Don't touch me." He stood back, jaw tight. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I tilted my head. "Oh, I think I've made it just right." Then I looked toward the cabinet, right where the little camera's red light blinked, invisible to them. "You want to know what's funny, Jake?" I said softly. "This table right here, it's been recording you for the last 10 minutes. His face went blank. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I said, standing slowly. "Go ahead. Say something smart. Maybe tell me again how you were gonna make sure I don't talk." He froze. Emily started crying. "Mom, please. It's not what you think." "Sweetheart," I said, voice trembling, "I know exactly what it is." Jake lunged forward, trying to grab the recorder. Benny stepped out from the kitchen, gun drawn, badge in hand. "Try it, pal," he growled. Jake stopped cold. "Game's over," Benny said. "We got everything we need." Emily sank to the floor, sobbing. Jake cursed under his breath, staring at me with hate in his eyes. But I just looked right back, steady, calm, unbroken. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The storm outside had passed, but inside me, it had just begun to clear. By dawn, my house didn't feel like mine anymore. Police lights flashed through the curtains, painting my walls in red and blue. Neighbors peeked from porches, whispering. Jake and Emily sat on my couch, cuffed and silent. Benny stood by the window, arms crossed. "You did good, Maggie," he said quietly. I didn't feel good. My hands shook as I looked at my daughter, my baby girl, sitting there with tears rolling down her cheeks. "Mama, please," she whispered. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But every memory from the last few months hit me like broken glass. The fake smiles, the pills, the lies. Jake tried to speak. "It was my idea, okay? She didn't want to do it." I snapped. "Don't you dare lie for her now." The officer pulled him up. He muttered something under his breath. Something I couldn't catch. and they led him out the door. Emily stayed behind, trembling. Benny nodded toward her. "She'll have to come too, Maggie. But they'll go easy. First-time offender, maybe probation." I just nodded, eyes glassy. "I raised her better than this," I whispered. When they finally left, the silence hit me harder than any scream could have. The clock ticked, the fridge hummed, and somewhere outside, a crow cawed. My whole life suddenly felt empty. 3 weeks later, I stood in court. The judge asked if I wanted to press full charges. I looked at Emily, sitting across the room, small, scared, a shadow of herself. "No," I said softly. "She's my daughter. Let her learn, but don't destroy her." Benny looked at me like I'd grown wings. "You sure?" he asked later. "I'm old, Benny," I sighed. "I don't have time for hate. I just want peace." He smiled, one corner of his mouth lifting. "Then you got it, Maggie. You earned it." Months rolled by. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. I'd sit on that same porch where I'd once watched Emily play with her dolls, and I'd sip my coffee while the wind carried the smell of honeysuckle. Sometimes I'd see kids biking down the street and think, they'll grow up, fall in love, make mistakes. Maybe not the same ones, but they'll learn too. One evening I got a letter, handwritten, from Emily. "Mama, I'm sorry. I know sorry can't fix it, but I want you to know I've been going to therapy. I'm working at a diner. I think of you every day. I'll make it right someday." I held that paper against my chest and cried like I hadn't cried in years. Later, Benny dropped by. He'd started helping at the local sheriff's office again, part-time, just to keep busy. "You look better," he said. "I feel lighter," I replied, like the storm finally moved on. We sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in gold and pink. Benny sipped his coffee and said, "You know, you could write a book about this whole mess." I laughed, really laughed. Who'd believe it? He shrugged. "Maybe someone who needs to." Weeks turned into seasons. Life didn't go back to how it was. It just became something new, slower, softer. Every so often, I'd walk past that old cabinet, the one that had hidden the camera, and I'd run my hand along the wood. It reminded me I wasn't powerless, that even old women can fight back. One night, as the first snow started to fall, I whispered to myself, "You did it, Maggie. You made it out alive." Then I smiled, small, tired, but real, because survival, I learned, isn't about staying untouched. It's about standing again, even when the world thinks you're too old to rise. The morning sunlight felt different that day. Warmer, somehow, like it was trying to apologize for all the years it had burned too harsh. I sat by the window with my cup of chamomile tea, the steam rising in lazy curls. The house still creaked like it always did, but now every sound felt like company rather than emptiness. It had been nearly a year since that awful night, the one that ripped open everything I thought I knew about my daughter. Since then, I'd found strange comfort in the quiet routines, watering the flowers, baking little pies for the neighbors, feeding the stray cat that decided my porch was home. But no matter how calm the days seemed, there were moments, soft, still moments, when my heart would twist. I'd remember Emily's face that night in court, her trembling hands, her broken voice whispering, "Mama, I'm sorry." Last week, the phone rang while I was watching one of those old cooking shows. The number wasn't familiar, but something told me to answer. "Hello?" "Hey, Mama." I froze. That voice, shaky, soft, it was her. My Emily. "Emily? My voice cracked, like my throat had forgotten how to say her name. I didn't want to call until I was ready. I needed to tell you something. My heart pounded. What is it, baby? I'm coming home, Mama. He showed up 2 days later. Same eyes, same nervous half smile. But there was something new, too. Something I hadn't seen in her since she was a teenager. Humility. Peace, maybe. She carried a small duffel bag and a paper bag from the diner she worked at. I brought lunch, she said softly. Fried chicken and apple pie. I remember you used to love that. I didn't answer. I just stepped forward and pulled her into my arms. She stiffened for a second, then melted, like every wall between us finally broke. For a long while we just stood there, crying quietly. When we finally sat down, she looked around the living room and said, "It smells the same, feels the same. Nothing much changes around here," I said with a little chuckle. "Just the people do." She smiled, but her eyes glistened. "I messed up bad, Mama. I know that." I reached over and touched her hand. "Yeah, you did. But you came back. That's what matters." As the afternoon light shifted golden, she started telling me about the Giner, how she worked double shifts, how the old cook taught her to make perfect pancakes, how she'd been saving up to start nursing school. "Can you believe that, Mama? Me, a nurse?" she said, laughing through her tears. I smiled. "I can believe anything now, baby." Then she went quiet. Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" I looked at her for a long time, my daughter, my blood, my heartbreak, and my hope, all in one face. "Emily," I whispered, "forgiveness ain't something you give once. It's something you practice every day, and I've been practicing." That evening, she helped me wash dishes. We laughed when she dropped a plate, both of us jumping at the crash before bursting into giggles. The sound of our laughter filled the whole house, bouncing off the walls like sunlight through glass. After dinner, she went out to sit on the porch while I cleaned up. I followed her a few minutes later. She was staring out at the sky, where the last streaks of orange faded into purple. "You remember when Dad used to chase fireflies with me out there?" she asked, pointing toward the yard. I nodded. "You two would run till the neighbors complained." She laughed softly. "I wish he were here, Mama." "Me too," I whispered. "But maybe he is, somewhere in that light." Later that night, after she went to bed in her old room, I stood in the hallway and watched the soft glow of her lamp under the door. My heart felt full for the first time in a long, long while. I went back to my chair by the window, the same one I'd sat in through every storm, every tear, every lonely night. Outside, the moon hung low and heavy. I whispered to it, "She's home. She finally came home." And for once, the house didn't feel haunted by memories. It felt alive again. Weeks passed, and life found rhythm. Emily enrolled in her classes, and every morning she'd kiss my cheek before heading out. I started knitting again, baking again, even humming while I worked. Sometimes we'd sit on that porch together, watching the world go by. And in those moments, I realized something I'd never truly understood before. Love doesn't vanish when it's broken. It just changes shape. It becomes quieter, slower, but it never dies. Now, when I look back, I don't see betrayal or shame. I see lessons carved into the years, each one shaping me into who I am. An old woman who's seen too much, but still believes in second chances. And maybe that's what life really is. A long, messy road back home.